everyone. Today's episode, we thought we'd think about our proudest moments in teaching, because I think, sometimes people, I don't know, like even when I tell some of our friends that we're doing this podcast called the Happy Teacher Podcast, some of them actually say to me like, oh, isn't that an oxymoron, or isn't that a contradiction in terms, as if you can't be happy and be a teacher, which I think is so sad, because it's some of my friends that are teachers saying that. And we are both happy teachers. And I think a big part of what makes us happy is these particular moments that make you feel really proud of being a teacher, proud of who you are, proud of, kind of the progress your students have made. I just think it is a lovely, lovely job. And we've got lots of moments that we're proud of.
Yeah, because this was prompted by, so my husband went on an interview and they asked him this question on interview, and he was really taken aback because he'd not been asked this type of question before at an interview. And he thought of something, but he then afterwards, when he was reflecting, he was like, oh, I don't know if that was my proudest moment or not. But like, obviously when you're put on the spot, and you maybe not have necessarily thought about this. So yeah, I had to put a lot of thought into it yesterday.
Me too.
Moment, that's like that's really thinking about this. So yeah, I'm doing the Break-time Banter today, and I just wanted to talk about this really like funny thing that happened. Well, it wasn't supposed to be funny, but it was funny to me and a couple of the other colleagues that we had. So we were part of like an academy chain. And that was quite a big academy chain. And once every, I want to say it was like once every 5 years, like it wasn't very often at all. They used to get all of the schools together in the academy chain to do a celebration. Now, the premise of it was like absolutely lovely, getting all these schools together, like celebrating certain teachers in the school, the school's achievements in themselves. And it was all kind of like they provided us lunch, and it was all like entertainment. It was a full day. And actually this one was done in Westminster Abbey as well, in like I mean it was like in like amazing venues. And so because I was there for such a long time, I did go to a couple of these events, and like at one of them they were kind of introducing the proudest like moments of something or another. I can't remember what they were doing it on. And someone just popped out of the crowd and started singing, and me and one of my colleagues, we just couldn't contain ourselves, because it was essentially like a flash mob singing When You Believe by Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey, which is a really tough song to sing. So you had like these random, it was basically the music departments in all of the schools, they'd got them. And they basically said like, right, you've got this part, and then like people would just start popping off, and it was just like a flash mob. It was like When You Believe. It was the most cheesy, Americanized thing I've ever been part of, and we were like giggling so much like little school children. And then we ended up getting told off by one of the assistant head teachers that was sitting in front of us, and was just like kept turning around and like, stop laughing, like it's not supposed to be funny. And it's like, but it's really funny, like what anyway, we weren't laughing too much that people were noticing. It was just that this assistant head was sitting in front of us, and it was a bit of a surprise, really, to be honest with you, because I was thinking like, what on earth, like this is supposed to be just like a celebrate. Why are we having a flash mob in the middle of this? Like, I'm so confused. What is going on? Now it's an American, like it is based in like an American academy kind of chain. And so that is why it was so Americanized. The CEOs of this academy chain are American. And so I think they were the ones that had probably thought.
I just feel that about these so things. Often. I came into teaching through Teach First. And I love Teach First, but it's based on an American model, so Teach for America. Right. And I remember when we were all getting trained up, it was a similar sort of thing. And I can't remember what nickname everyone gave me, but basically at 8 a.m. in lectures, we were all supposed to stand up, and each year group had a theme tune, and ours was Gnarls Barkley Smiley Faces. I don't know if you remember that song. Yeah. And I, every 8 a.m. refused to stand up, and I would just be sat there drinking my coffee. And I can't remember what nickname everyone had for me, but it was like, you know, derogatory nickname because I wouldn't join in. I was like, yeah, I'm not joining in. Why do I want to sing Gnarls Barkley at 8 a.m. every morning?
Do you
How is
know
this
what?
making me a good teacher? Ah!
I feel like this is such like a British thing. Like we don't want to. We're not. I don't know.
I don't like
It's the
forced fun. Don't force
yeah.
me to sing
It's
at
the
8
forced
a.m.
one. It's the forced one. I just
Oh,
yeah. It was not. It was not happening. Like, I think they wanted everyone to join in as well. We were like, no way. Like absolutely not.
but
Not a
like,
Whitney
why would
Houston
that
song.
work? Why would it work? Like, there must have been like thousands of you there.
There were
Like,
thousands. Yes.
clearly a huge proportion of you won't like Whitney Houston or Mariah Carey. Clearly a huge proportion of you don't necessarily like singing. Like, why would that be a good idea? Ah,
I don't know, but it was, I mean, it was really fun. I mean, even now I laugh about it. It's like a funny moment in time. Like, I also think like, you know, these really cheesy, yeah, like forced fun moments. I'm just like, I just feel really awkward in,
yeah.
in
And
those
if the
moments anyway.
purpose was, you know, back to kind of what our episode's about, kind of, you know, our proudest moment as happy teachers. If the purpose was to make you feel proud, because that song's obviously all about,
Yeah,
you know,
that's
when
what
you
it was the
believe.
aim. That was
But
the
it's
aim.
like, actually, neither one of us, I'm guessing, are going to say our proudest moment is sitting in one of those halls and like listening to Whitney Houston and feeling
No,
proud of when we
no, no.
believe and what miracles we achieve.
Yeah.
They're clearly going to be
I
actual. I
know
mean, I
it
don't know what
kind of
yours is, but
it was also alluding to this idea that like teachers are almost like godlike, and I was a bit like, oh, I don't know if I agree with the philosophy behind this song
yeah,
choice either. So
yeah.
like like we're doing miracles, and it's like, no, don't know if I like that idea.
And also like even just taking the God element out of that, like what is that saying? So, you know, we talk about Carol Dweck and growth mindset and hard
Mm.
work and perseverance, but it's like, oh no, your teachers are just performing miracles. That's why you're all doing well at school. It's like, no, the teachers are working hard, the students are working hard, and therefore they're getting good grades.
Exactly. So who wants to start off with their proudest moment, Jenny? Do you want to
I know I'm
start?
quite intrigued. Yeah, I'm happy to start.
Go on
So,
then, you start.
um, so it is a one moment, but obviously with every moment, it obviously has a kind of lead up to it. So this is at a previous school that I taught at, where it was a mixed school, but for whatever
Mm.
reason, whenever I've taught history A level, it just tends to be almost exclusively boys. So it was an all boy class, and I'd kind of known them on and off because I'd been at that school for quite a while, but had maternity leaves.
Mm.
So I remember them kind of lower down the school, but I don't think I'd necessarily taught most of them. But I'd been head of department, and I know that some of them had been a bit kind of testing to some of my younger colleagues that were kind of NQTs or quite early in their career. So I'd had to deal with them quite a lot more from a kind of pastoral point of view.
Mm.
But I had them for A-level history. And yeah, like it took, you know, I was coming back from a maternity leave, and, you know, it took a little while to kind of, you know, build our rapport. Because they, as I say, had been kind of slightly more difficult students earlier in the school. And I just remember the particular moment was I decided I was leaving because I'd
Mm.
had my second child, and I wanted to be more part-time than this school was willing to let me be. So I've talked about this before in our previous mental health episode, but for me, I was thinking I need more time at home with my young children. I'm happy to take the pay cut, not be a head of department. Um, and so I hadn't yet told any of the students I was leaving yet, but somehow I can't remember how, but they'd found out. I think the school had sent a letter to
Oh.
parents telling them I was leaving, but didn't tell me they were sending that letter. And then so these kids found
Classic.
out before I was
Yeah.
ready to tell them. And I just remember this moment that I walked into the lesson, and all of them, because they must have had a lesson in that room before me, so they were already sat down. And it's like all these, you know, big 18-year-old boys, they're all like over 6 foot tall. And they're all just sat there with their arms crossed, staring at me. And they were like, when were you going to tell us, miss? And at this point, I don't know what I'm supposed to have told them. And they're like, you're leaving us. And I was like, oh, I did not know you knew that. And the bit that made me proud wasn't just that they were obviously upset that I was leaving, but I explained to them really honestly. I was like, I need to have more time with my own children. They're really little. I'm spending too much time at the school. And what made me so proud is that they all kind of unfolded their arms and listened to me. And then they like just different different boys, they're all 18-year-olds. They were like, Miss, we really respect that. Like you're putting
Oh,
motherhood first. And then they started like telling me stories about their mums and how their mums had taken career breaks, and
oh,
they were like, we think you're a really good mum. And I was like, oh,
oh my
and it
God,
just
that's
made
so
me so proud,
cute.
because I think it kind of showed, it's making me feel a bit like teary now, actually. I thought, oh, good. Like school hasn't just taught them to be good at academic subjects. It's teaching them to be well-rounded young adults.
Yeah.
Like they are only 18, but they recognize that I have a life outside of teaching, and they recognize what their parents did for them.
Mm,
And I
yeah.
just thought, oh, like I feel confident that you're going to go out into the world, and you're going in the right direction in terms of being nice young men
That's
that
so
kind of
lovely.
value mothers. And I was like, oh, so yeah, that's my proud moment. And then
Oh,
just to link
that's
to that, the very once they knew the next lesson, they were all being a bit weird about it, and they were like, oh, this boy's going to be late to class because he's got this on. And I was like, what is going on? And they know how much I get hungry and hangry when I'm not eating. And they just organised this massive takeaway pizza and dessert party for me. So they'd like gone to
oh,
like the
so they
local
really
Domino's and got
appreciated
loads of
you.
pizzas, got loads of cake, and we all just sat and chatted.
Oh, that
And I was like,
sounds
oh,
lovely.
yeah. So
I
that's
think
my
those moments where like your students are like so mature and they really kind of
mm,
get it, and like you can have those honest conversations. Isn't that so lovely?
yeah,
I love it when that happens, and it doesn't happen
yeah.
very often that you can have, quite honest conversations with your students. Like maybe it helped that they were a bit older,
Mm.
um, in the sixth form and stuff. But when did you leave, and when did they take their A levels?
So I'm trying to think now. I think I left in the May of that year, but obviously sixth formers by then have already kind of gone on study leave. So basically I was leaving at the same time that they were
Yeah, so
going
I was
off for
going to
study
say
leave.
it probably felt like nice closure to them anyway,
Yeah,
because you did kind of see them through. It wasn't like you left and then they still had time,
yeah,
to kind of study or whatever else. But yeah,
yeah.
I would say mine's linked to just a one specific child, and I had to really think. I really had to think about what was my proudest moment, because obviously you do have moments in the kind of like every day that you are proud of, or like at the end of the year or whatever else. And so this one child, he had an SEN need. This was quite a long time ago. He had an SEN need, and he was in my RE GCSE class. And I just used to say to him all the time, I'd be like, your memory is amazing, because his memory was like insane. The amount of
Mm,
stuff he used to remember, like, and come out with, and I'm like, oh my God, how did you remember that? Like, this is amazing. Like he'd literally remember the quotes word for word. He'd like kind of rote learn everything, which is,
mm,
pretty insane. That's really hard to do. Um, and but his writing was pretty illegible. It was very messy, lack of like spelling, punctuation, and grammar.
mm,
But he clearly had the aptitude to really kind of memorize stuff. And you know, a lot of people didn't kind of think he would do very well at GCSE, and I think maybe proud for a number of different reasons, but he ended up getting a B. This was before, this is how
oh,
old it is. He ended up getting a B at GCSE, which was his highest grade out of all of
oh,
his subjects. And he actually went on to do REA level
oh,
with one of my other colleagues, and he ended up passing that. Then he ended up going to university. And I'm not saying that's all because of me, because obviously not, but I think I used to just say to him all the time. I literally used to repeat the same thing to him. I'm like, your memory is amazing. Like you will be absolutely fine in the GCSE. We just need to work on like, bit of structure, a bit of like, whatever else,
yeah,
making sure your writing is legible. I think he ended up having a scribe or a computer anyway, so it was fine because obviously he had SEN needs, so he can have access arrangements for that. But the proud part for me was like, first of all, having the growth mindset to not put him in a
mm,
box and be like, okay, he's got SEN needs. He, his writing is atrocious in terms of like the legibility of his writing. But that doesn't mean that he can't do it at GCSE. That doesn't mean that we should limit him, and limit our thinking about him. Whereas other teachers may have been like, oh, yeah, he'll do okay, like he'll do fine. But like, I was like, no, he's gonna get a good grade. Like he's gonna get above his, target grade, whatever it was. Because these target grades, they're made from primary school, and they
and they're made from like maths and English. It's like, oh, they did this in English, so therefore they're going to get a C grade in RE in history. It's like,
no, I take it with a massive pinch of salt every single time I see a target grade. I never kind of go from that anyway. But yeah, like I saw him a couple of years back, and he was like, oh, do you remember me? And I was like, yeah, of course I remember you. Like, and the same as it made you teary, it's made me teary because I now have a child with SEN needs, and I just think to myself, oh my God, I really, really hope. And her memory is also amazing. God, that's very short. Her memory is also really amazing, but like she struggles with like other things, and I really just hope that her confidence is built by teachers,
like to teachers that believe in her.
You know, you can do it, like regardless. And so yeah, proud moment for me. And now reflecting back, oh God, I'm such
mascara's still good. It's fine, don't worry.
Yeah, I know. But just thinking back, I just think like, well, obviously I didn't have my kid then. So and this was, like I said, this was probably about 7 or 8 years ago now. And still one of my proudest moments. Not because he didn't get the best grade in the school. Like he didn't get the best grade in the school, but he got an amazing grade for him. And on top of that, he done it through his own volition, and he was really proud of what he done. And like I said, he ended up going on to study and get his degree and everything, from going from somebody that maybe like wasn't very much believed in by people, maybe just like that. Isn't that the special part of being a teacher? Like sometimes you see something in a kid that you just think, right, that's it, like they're gonna do so well, but I just need to bring up their confidence. And yeah, it happened recently. Like a kid said to me, she's just taken her GCSE this year, and she was like, oh miss, like I think I'm just gonna do really well. And I was like, that's really good. And I just thought, you know what, I've done right by you here. So like, even if you don't do really well, like you've got that confidence going into the exam, feeling like you're gonna do really well.
I think the kind of common thread in what we're both saying here, back to your golden thread from a previous episode there, but we're both really aware that the way that teachers make an impact and kind of what our proudest moments are bigger than what our subject is. It's kind of the skill, the life skills and confidence and like humanity that we're giving our students, that we're not, you might teach RE, I might teach history and politics, but our proudest moments, and you do get those proud moments if they've understood a particular difficult, I don't know, historical concept or something, but it's more that that they're going to be okay as humans.
Yes, and that makes, maybe it's because we're humanities teachers. Maybe, we go with the human side of things, like, and I do think that's super, super important. And I've always thought, like, the character education side of things is equally as important as getting your academic grades. And yes, they are important, but if you can build the other side of your character, that will last you through the rest of your life.
And do you know what else? When you're saying that about kind of character as well, it just makes me think of our episode 2 episodes back. So is that episode 5 when we talk about what makes a good lesson? If you as a teacher are given the freedom, with the loose structure of what makes a good lesson, to do a lesson in the way that works for you and your personality, I feel like you therefore get the opportunities to get these proud moments, because you get the opportunities to, I don't know, like, build kids' characters. So if you're told every single lesson you have to do this 5 minutes low stakes quiz, and they're just going to write answers, you're going to tell them the answer, you're never going to learn any new information about those students. Whereas, if you do a range of different starters, you might suddenly find, oh, this kid who seems like they're a difficult child, or they've got this SEN need, you're like, oh my God, they're actually amazing at this. And then it's like, that's your way in.
Yeah, because you've got to find, and this is another thing about being a teacher. Obviously, each child is different, and you have to find your way in with certain children. You're right. Like there are certain children that you don't necessarily understand, or you don't feel like you've got that kind of connection with them, especially in your GCSE and like A-level classes where you spend a lot of time with them, and you're obviously training them for something that is quite hard normally. So that is it's a journey, isn't it? It's like a journey of knowing each other. And, you even said it earlier, like building that rapport with a class, really will, that will matter more to the grades than you will ever realize.
Yeah,
That
they're not
rapport that you
separate. I
have
think
with the
that's the other.
students, they are so intertwined with one another.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, if those students know that you actually care and that you really want them to do well, and it's not just a grade, statistic on a sheet that you need to pump out the grade, and that's not the case at all. They will do better. They will do better. 100%. If they know you care and you actually build a rapport with the class, they will naturally do better because they want to do better for you, and for themselves as well. And it just
they want
builds that
you
up.
to be proud of them, don't they? Like you've built that rapport, so they want to make you proud.
Yeah.
So they want to try harder than they might do for a teacher who hasn't bothered to build that rapport.
But yeah, I think that leads on nicely probably to our get in the bin. And we were, before this episode, we were like, what on earth we can do for like get in the bin for a proudest moment? But actually, I think we thought of one, didn't we, that would be quite relevant for this.
Yeah, so it's not a fully formulated idea yet, but I guess what we were thinking is that, we feel proud of being teachers and we've got these proud moments, but it's this idea of schools that don't make you feel proud as a teacher. So, maybe not recognizing what you do. So I guess what I was thinking more specifically for like my what's going to go in the bin, and I guess it might be something about the sort of schools that you've been talking about in previous episodes where they have a very high turnover of staff, where staff go and there's no acknowledgement. Like there's no speech about their achievements. And it's like you have put your heart and soul into a school, and whenever you leave is your complete choice as to when you leave, whether that is the
Jenny,
end of year, or whether it's Easter, whether
I
it's
will stop
Christmas.
you there. I left my school after 9 years of blood, sweat, and tears, and speeches were banned that year that I left.
Speeches were banned. It's like
Speeches were
a
banned.
dictatorship.
Yeah, speeches were banned because the year previous, someone had left and they'd made a bad speech. I put that in speech quotation marks because their bad speech basically had not been very kind about the head teacher. Although he hadn't said anything too crazy. He just like put some stuff in there that maybe was a little bit contentious. So yeah, the year after when I left, and I'd been there for 9 years, and I, you know what, I wanted to make a speech thanking people, like, for like all the people that have made such a difference in my life, my career, like all of the, even like the caretakers and people like that I'm gonna like really miss, that I'm never gonna probably see again. Got completely taken away from me. And actually, you know what, even they didn't even let, like, because they used to let line managers do a speech for you. Not that I would wanted my line manager at the time to do a speech for me, because they didn't know me at all anyway. They'd only been my line manager for a couple of months, but they didn't even do that. So basically it was a zero acknowledgement of anything that you'd done in your time at that school. And yes, I think you hit the nail on the head there. The zero acknowledgement, or the no acknowledgement of something when you've done. Look, listen, as a human, you want acknowledgement. This is not just as a teacher.
Yeah,
You want
but it's this
acknowledgement.
idea, and also it's this idea, can you imagine if we as teachers never acknowledged or praised our students? How bad that would be, or us as parents if we never acknowledged or praised our children. And yet we're there working in a very difficult job, and and you've done all these, in your case, 9 years of service there, and there's no acknowledgement of what you've done. I think that's appalling.
And those, I feel like, those moments where you do get celebrated, you feel so like so happy in the moment. Like I can think of loads of times where I have been celebrated at school, or like the staff body's been celebrated, you know, if, I don't know, if got a good Ofsted or something like that. And, you know, and we've had some really cool moments like
Yeah.
celebrating things. And it's just amazing. We don't get that acknowledgement very often, but when you do, you feel really thankful for it.
Mm.
And like I said, as a human, you just want it anyway. You want the
Yeah.
acknowledgement
Yeah.
and the reassurance that you've done
Yeah.
really well and that you should be proud of what you've done.
Yeah. It's a natural human trait, isn't it? It's not
Yeah,
attention seeking, it's not needy. I don't know if it is a bit of a British thing that, you know, we don't do it, but it's like we really should.
yeah, it should be something. And I know we've spoken about it before about, you know, you know, like sometimes head teachers put in this thing where they like nominate one member of staff in the week that's done like something really well, whatever, which is lovely, but then it like kind of leaves out the rest of the staff body. So
Mm.
I think even finding those ways to kind of joint acknowledge things as well. So
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
just
Like everyone's
individualized.
collective effort in getting
Yeah.
the year 11s ready for their exams, or
Yeah,
yeah, it's
exactly.
got to be done well. You can't just kind of, you know, be a head teacher with your tick list. Like, oh, I'm just going to thank this person this week. You've got to really think through your almost like your praise and recognition strategy for your staff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah,
so often
definitely.
that I found that over the different schools that I've worked at, the assistant head role that often gets culled is the one that's to do with staff development, to do with kind of well-being,
Mm,
because they obviously think it's slightly less necessary and doesn't, you
yeah.
know, pay dividends in terms of exam grades and, you know, kind of
Yeah.
rankings. And it's like, oh, it's again, it's just very short-sighted. Like your staff are your most important resource.
Mm,
And you know, we talk about this all the time, don't we? Like the teacher retention crisis. Politicians often talk about the teacher recruitment crisis, but the real problem is the retention crisis.
yeah.
You've got
And
more qualified teachers in the country than ever before, but you're losing them. You're losing 7,000 of us every year. By
and
that I mean women in
celebrating
their 30s.
celebrating those proud moments will basically, yeah, giving the reassurance, the acknowledgement to those teachers, those human beings. Like I said, it's not even about being a
Mm,
teacher. This is in any profession. Like is it there's some statistic somewhere, I'm going to find it, but it's something like you are more likely to stay in a job. Okay, it's not to do with the money,
mm,
it's to do with the amount of praise that
yeah,
you get. So like you're more likely to give more to a job, stay in a job,
yeah,
if you are praised in the job and you are acknowledged for all of the things that you do. And it's
yeah.
not to do with the amount of money you get paid, although obviously that's important. It's not to do with that. People don't
Not the
stay in
deciding
jobs.
factor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not the deciding factor of whether people stay in a job and feel happy in a job. But yeah, maybe that's another episode for another time.
Mm.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
And
and in terms of next episodes, we are going to get our former colleagues, aren't we?
yeah,
We're going to get
yeah.
them on. So when we all work together and set up a department and talk about kind of a good department. So that will be coming soon. But yeah, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening, guys. Bye.
Bye.